Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bag Collection Podcast. My guest today is Tim Blackton. He is also another friend of mine that I met in the industry group, just like I did with Ashley, who was our last episode. He is just such a great person and gives wonderful advice, has cool, funny stories. So I hope you guys really enjoy this episode. As always, like, comment, and share. Much love to you all.
I don't know, these Zoom kind of things have been great to connect with folks like you and other people all around the country that I never probably would have had the opportunity to. And
Exactly.
that's what's been great about it, that, whether I was just if I was just networking locally, it's a very narrow-minded, narrow group of people. Not that they're terrible people, but it's just a small circle. And now I've got networking that I'm doing in LA, doing the stuff with you guys on the East Coast. And so it's just been really phenomenal that way. I've been really pretty
Yeah.
lucky. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Sean's meetups have definitely helped too, meeting all these new
Yeah.
people. Now, I mean, I'm building follows. I'm building, connections and
Right.
all that. And it's really great because again, like I'm from a small town 30 minutes outside of the city.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends, like in a way they could be in the industry, but
Right.
they're not really into the acting and the
Right.
directing.
Right.
So I really don't have many people here to like say, oh, let's make a short film or something. So
Right.
it's nice to be able to connect with people who have the same interests and who have went through possibly the same stuff that I've went through as a working actor now. And
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying about the small circle.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
I
And
really
and, and
do.
the, but then making that circle bigger. And
Mhm.
that's what I think I said in that meeting is just like, this business is all about who you know and the connections you
Oh yeah.
make. And to do that is harder and harder and harder, right now, the way things are. You're not like in a room meeting people, having that kind of interaction. It's been a new opportunity. And the idea that one day we're all going to get back together and be in a room is going to be phenomenal. But until
Yeah.
then, everyone's going to make ways to make it work. I'm working on a script right now with a writer, and he's an old dear friend of mine, but he lives in Northern California, so he's about 7.5 hours away. And it's probably going to be easier now for us to collaborate on a project than it ever has been, especially at a distance, because we can get on a video call and chat for an hour and a half, and then be like, okay, go back and do work, and then come back and meet again. So I think it's the Zoom and this video conferencing world has made it simpler for people to connect. But there's something to be said about wanting to be in a room with a group of people writing and producing and making projects and making art happen. You know, they can
I
only
agree.
shoot so much in and around your house before you're like, okay, I got to do something.
Right. See, like I've been doing a lot of acting TikToks. I've
Hmm.
definitely noticed like since I started getting on TikTok like at the very beginning that it's
Yeah.
become a bigger thing, which is
Yeah.
because again, you're getting yourself out there and people
Right.
are going to see it some way, shape, or form, no matter how many likes you get or how many views you
Right.
get, still being seen by somebody.
Right.
Um, so I mean, how have you really been during the whole pandemic? Have you just really been focusing on like stuff like writing and
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because I do a little bit of everything well, okay, I'm a producer first, I'm a director second. A writer actor is fighting for third at this point because I do some acting. I did a commercial this year. I did a music video. I did an industrial, which was nice because it's just a hobby. It's just like literally acting is like something. I have a decent agent who gives me exactly what I put into it, which is at this point I don't put a lot of energy into it, only just because it's just was more of something I was doing just because it felt important to do in Portland and to get some acting and get networking and all that kind of stuff. So it's been great. Um, so yeah, writing a lot right now and revamping sort of my career goals and how I was going to go about doing it. Definitely, there was a period of 6 months of just like, nothing's happening. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not motivated to do anything. The world's not happening. It's all kind of that. So it really took me until I got into October of last year, where it was like September, October, where it was like, okay, I've got to figure out what the I'm doing, pardon my French, I don't know if I could swear on your
Oh,
podcast,
you,
but
yep, you can.
um, good. Where it was like, okay, I had left the job in January, literally a year ago today, the 17th of January, and had a plan of how I was going to execute my move to more creative content, storytelling stuff, which is because I'd been an event producer, senior event producer for Nike for 15 years. So it's all about line producing, show management, show calling, all this kind of crazy stuff, and managing other people's stuff instead of just being my own stuff.
Mhm.
And I always luckily kept the sideline creative stuff going, and we'll get to that later. But I left the job and knew I could get some event gigs to keep me going, and then segue into more film and television and focus on that storytelling aspect. And what happened was all the event went away, all the event stuff went away. And so now the idea is don't go back to events at all anymore. Just be done with it and focus on your career as a writer and as a director and as a producer. I acted in the shorts that I made only just because I wanted to highlight me and I didn't want to have to deal with an actor.
Right.
And that was fun, but I don't want to do it much anymore. It spread me way too thin. By the time I was shooting the last short bit, it's a four-parter thing. I was spread way too thin. It was, directing, producing, acting,
Right.
wrote the thing, trying to manage the thing. And so it was too much. And then things suffered. So I'd like to do these next projects as a creative behind the camera and focus on that. I don't need to be some auteur that's like, oh, I got to put myself in it kind of situation. I'd rather avoid that because acting is hard. You have to just be, ready and on and willing and able all the time to do whatever, that director and those producers and those people want. And I like doing that sometimes. I like just being like, okay, I'm gonna be your actor. What do you want me to do?
Mhm.
And that's the best way to go into those situations. So um, but to direct and act myself together in the same place, it's not good. It's just I don't think. Plus, I'm like, nah, I'm tired of seeing myself. So yeah,
I get what you mean.
yeah,
See, that's how I was for a while. When I was in high school, well, middle school going into high school, I should say, I was a lot of behind the scenes before I got into acting.
yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to do something within the industry, some way, shape, or
Hmm.
form. I knew I wanted to.
Yeah.
I just didn't know exactly what it was. And
Hmm.
I would definitely say it's acting, but then I also love directing because when I was in my junior and senior year of high school, my drama course, they had us write our own one act plays
Nice.
and then put them on stage and it was graded.
Yeah.
So I loved it and I acting I feel like is a lot harder than directing, but then I don't feel like it can be interchangeable at the same time.
Oh,
So
I think for me, I started off loving theater in junior high. That's where I
mhm,
got bit by the bug. And
right,
so I was fortunate at the time that it was the world where they had money to put on plays and we would do plays in junior high. And then I went off to high school, and the high school that I went to just happened to do really big budget musicals, giant musicals. So I was really able to be immersed in it. And I knew early on what college I wanted to go to, which was in Southern Oregon, where the Oregon Shakespeare Festival was. So I was very focused and very driven to do that. And I thought I wanted to be an actor, but I always dabbled in a little tech, a little lighting and things like that. At a certain point in college, it was like, yeah, you're not going to be an actor. There's way better actors out there. And I knew I wanted to eat a little bit. I was like, there's going to be acting's going to be hard, but I know I can be a good stage manager and a good director. So I ended up getting a stage management degree, which gave me a lot of opportunity for work. And the moment in college where I got on the other side of the table, where I was suddenly not the actor, I was the creative working with the directors and directing and all that kind of stuff, I felt so much more comfortable because there was so much less pressure in a way. Because acting, you've got that second to nail it or you're done, for the
right.
auditions. So to sort of be on the opposite end of that and be like, okay, now I'm going to be watching these, put me in a much more comfortable place. Just because acting is such a on kind of thing. And, once you're behind the table, if you fuck up, you can go, fuck, you can't do that. When you got to be able to roll with it.
Exactly.
So it's the release of that tension of acting. But now, because I didn't do it for, well, I always keep a little acting going on here and there. And I did stand-up comedy for 6 years as an adult, just because I tried to think of the scariest thing I could think of. I've danced, I can't sing, and I don't even, that's another step, but performance wise, stand-up comedy was the scariest thing I could think of doing. And what it did is it made me more comfortable in my skin, more comfortable talking about myself, leading better towards auditions, because with stand-up comedy you have to be ready to go and just do this stuff. So it got me better at auditions, and now it's getting me better at pitching. So I feel like certain aspects of certain journeys where you go, I'm going to try this for fun, turns out to be a great tool to grow with. And that's the thing, is on top of the job I had, which was a great fun job, working for Nike, doing crazy Nike shit for crazy amounts of money for crazy people, was a blast. And on top of that, I was able to direct some commercials for White and Kennedy. I was able to do stand up. I made my shorts. I don't have kids, so I was really able to have my evenings free to do the things I could want to do to develop all of this. But when I left college, I've never worked in anything but theater, film, television events. Like, it's been my focus. And I used to lecture at my university to theater majors, especially stage managers, about like, okay, so you have a stage management degree. Here's other things you can do with that degree. There's just a multitude of other jobs out there within the industry and even not in the industry, but that highlight, strong production management skills, strong organizational skills, strong logistics skills, all that sort of stuff. And in the business, it just goes twofold and threefold to what else it could be. Because I think sometimes some of these students at these colleges get this very focused thing, like it's theater only, and you're going to be a stage manager and that's going to be your job. It's like, no, take this foundation, because theater's great, but I'm not rich enough to do theater. It's a big time commitment. I remember several years ago, the last theater, I've directed a lot of theater in my life. I used to teach at a high school and at a community college and directed there. And those were usually set audiences, you'd have people. But I do a couple of community theater projects, and you do stuff and nobody would come and see it. You'd be lucky if one or two people maybe came and saw your stuff. And so then suddenly you're like, what am I putting all this energy towards a theater project when I'm not getting, no one's seeing it?
Exactly.
And that's the thing with theater. So there's a life outside of theater. Now, because I also right after college went to work for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival right out of the gate, I jumped from university to the highest professional theater, in the West Coast, and was like, okay. And so I ended up doing professional theater for quite a few years. Also, the Oregon Cabaret Theater, was a stage manager. I left it sort of like, okay, I'm done with theater. Like, I don't need to do this. I don't have the energy to sit in the theater anymore, because I'm interested in doing other stuff. And I kind of was a bummer, because theater was such a big part of my life. And just fall of 2019, I was in LA visiting some friends, and their daughter was doing the High School Musical at their high school. And I went to watch the kids rehearse and practice. I was there for a week, so I got to see a bunch of different rehearsals. And I was like, right, this is why I love this. It's because they had an energy of youth and fun and vibrancy to it before it becomes a job, before it becomes a grind, before it becomes, how am I working to make a paycheck to get up an apartment, all that kind of stuff, that suddenly it becomes. The school kids brought me back to it, which was great. So yeah, because when I was at the high school, I had a theater program that I was managing with the high school teacher, the drama teacher, and I had a policy of like, listen, everybody can come and play, everybody can come and be part of this. Oh, everyone is welcome, but you have to be an active member. You can't just like show up and just sort of dink around and think you're going to be able to play.
Right.
And then I wanted to give a quality experience to everybody, so that they kind of knew what professional theater felt like, and so at least they'd have that experience. And that was great to do. but that again, that was in the early aughts, the late '90s that I was doing that. So I like to say the early aughts. I'm thrilled that I get to say that. But yeah,
Your short films.
yeah.
For those who don't know you and haven't heard of any of your work yet, what are they? You said it was a four-parter.
Oh yeah, so it's a series. It's called Tex, and it's about my life in events. I did events for 20 plus years, and so you see some crazy things. And it's about these AV techs and about how they go about their week. It's four short stories sort of slammed together. It's like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday kind of thing, and it's just about little snippets of life at an event center, and what people go through. And it comes from a place of just like, I got to a place where like, write what you know. And after 20 years in the event business, I know some stories. So it's the beginnings of that. And right now it's just I package them all together as one short. They could be little webisodes. I haven't really figured it out yet. I wanted to get the product out there and seen before I was sort of chopping it up. Also because thematically, each little snippet ties to the other one in one way or another. But it's about it's about the stuff I know, because in early 20s they were like, write what you know, and I'm like, I don't know anything. And as I got older, I learned a lot of stuff and saw a lot of people and saw a lot of types. And this was an inspiration that came to me 5 years ago when a friend took a really great picture on Facebook of all of us at work, and somebody wrote Tex 9 o'clock HBO Sundays, and we all just sort of wrote funny ideas. And I was like, oh, wait a second, I think I got an idea for stuff. So I started sort of gelling their stuff down a little bit, and then going, what are the stories I want to tell? And started making a series of shorts. And it took me 5 years to do. The first one, I'm the only one in it. I shot it in my bedroom, with just a few people. And then the second one was me again, but we did a location. And then by the third and fourth one, I added more actors, more locations, bigger stories a little bit, bigger camera work, more days of shooting. The first ones were just single days. And then by the time we got to the last two, it was 2 days of shooting. And it was something I was begged, borrowing, and stealing to do. I didn't pay anybody. I just fed everybody really well. But as a producer and as a director and as a writer and person, if everybody's volunteering their time, I respected that. We had a general call at 7 a.m. Most people were called between 8 and 9, and we were wrapped between 5 and 6. And maybe 6, like walking out the door, done. And it's because I've done enough in the Hollywood industry. I've worked on enough films. I've been on enough sort of shitty shoots that people abuse hours and time, and it's not worth it. Especially if I'm not paying anybody, you have to be respectful of that. And so I just sort of ran great little sets and produced this project, and we'll make sure the links are out there. It's on YouTube right now, but I don't know if I should try to find a way to monetize it. Everybody's like, oh, I'm showing this on Amazon, or I'm showing this on Tubi or whatever. I hadn't really ever thought about that, using it as a tool that way, and I might. Right now it's been good for film festivals and calling cards, and I've been a finalist in a couple of film festivals, so that's been really great. Nothing winning, but at least you're getting acknowledged for the work you're doing. And in film festivals, which I feel like are like stand-up comedy contests, just a crapshoot, really. You're just going to be like, oh, do they like you? So I've applied to a bunch. I didn't get into a bunch. I got into a few, and now I'm like, okay, I'm done with that journey, because it's sort of, unless it's really tailored and something really special, I'm finding that even where film festivals where I thought I'd get in locally, they didn't even give me a second look. So, it's like, okay, well, you have to sort of understand that level of what you're doing with your project. Certain film festivals, if it's a feature-length film and it's got, there's network people there or distributors and all that kind of stuff, then that's a whole different game. And I think that's what a lot of film festivals have turned into, really, of just ways of features to get out there. So, and luckily the most recent one I was a finalist for is sort of a festival that's really based on storytelling more for the TV medium and things like that. And Tex is a really just a precursor and introduction to sort of the bigger world of events. And I have a pilot that I've written and a story about a group of employees at an event center. So that's a story I'd like to sell too. I'd like to find a way to get that out there and sold, and be able to produce and make that happen. So we'll see.
Right.
Yeah.
You never know. You
You
never know.
never know. You never know. You got to keep trying. Listen, I keep trying. I mean, I went to LA in '95 to be an AD, and then realized I didn't want to do that. So I left and I came back to Portland, and I was lost for a little couple of years, but then you settle down, you figure out your journey. And I'm better for it now than I would have ever been then. But I got away from it. I got to events. I did all this other stuff, but my passion is directing and film and television and storytelling and production and all of the stuff that goes with that. And that's what I want to do. So I'm at a point in my life where I'm young enough to still be able to pull this off. And I think right now the timing is perfect for it. So
Exactly.
just
I
trying
feel
to make
like
it happen.
it's very important to follow your instincts for sure, like follow your gut, because usually when you have that gut instinct, it's
Yeah.
like 99.9% correct. So
Yeah.
like
But to pick up and to go and to pull, like for me to leave a corporate job of 15 years was a scary thing to do. But, you figure it out. You make the choices you go, okay, well, that's going to mean this, or it will open this versus in a negativity. Because if you never, because for staying in a certain place, you suddenly get trapped in the routine and you'll never get out of it unless you make the break or somebody decides to make the break for you. And then that's never any fun. You definitely want to be going anywhere and doing anything on your own terms for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Because as you can tell by the pictures, I go to Comic Cons a lot and I love going
Right.
to them. And
Yeah.
I went to Georgia a few times and I just loved it every time I went down. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of projects down there that I love and I want to get involved in the future.
Right.
And as much as I want to, start applying for stuff to work in person, and I have done a couple jobs in person already,
Yeah.
but it's like, how do I know this project isn't going to get shut down? What's going to happen to it?
Well, that's the thing right now. And I think that's the thing. That's the thing that's good for you is you found other things to kind of move your energy to be creative, to be doing something. Because yeah, it's right now, even the main big COVID shoot, big things that are being shot and are doing the COVID testing. And like I have friends who, produce and do all this stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, we were in Florida, we were doing this thing. Oh, well, how's that going? Well, now it turns out the director had COVID. So even stuff, and this was a Disney project, this was a big Disney thing. So it's really not safe to a certain degree. And I have another friend in LA, she's a COVID coordinator. So she's monitoring people on set for COVID and things like that. So a little bit, nothing's rushing back into production in a way. It's very expensive to insure anything now. So I think they're going to really pick and choose to see what would get produced. And those people who are working will probably be at the top of the list to be picked. But, that doesn't mean right now you can't start figuring out your move for the fall or early next year, if that's the case. I mean, when I went to LA, it was 1990, it was in 1994 of July, 1994. I was like, I'm going to move. I had a theater contract that was ending in December. I'd been in the theater for 2 years. It was time for me to move on. I told them, I said, at the end of this contract in December, I'm moving to LA. And I moved to LA with no job. I had some money saved, but I had no job. And prior to going, and I've been living in Ashland, Oregon, small little town in Southern Oregon, not really big, not a lot of people to network with, but there were enough people to network with because of the theater industry and the people that were working in it and who I was working with at the time. So I just literally just started asking everybody I knew if they knew somebody. Do you know somebody in LA? Do you know somebody in LA? And I had a list of 25 people. And two of those people got me to two different production coordinators that pretty much kept me hired the entire year. Because I'd worked for one, That gig would finish, I'd work for another. That gig would finish, I'd work for that first one again, that kind of thing. And I worked nonstop for a year before I was like, I don't want to be in this town. I don't want to be doing what I'm doing. So I left. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is, if you're going to go, you got to be able to somewhat jump without a parachute, but be confident in your skills and your ability that something will land. And then when you get on that set, that first set, you just kick ass immediately.
Yeah.
So, yeah. My first day on set in LA, I met Benjamin Bratt. We were filming a movie called Woman Undone, and nice guy. He had just been sort of dating Julia Roberts, is kind of how I knew him. And he ended up being, he's a pretty big star these days. But he was like, this is my first day on a set. He's like, man, you seem to be doing pretty well. So I figured I was sort of set for it. I mean, the way I described film production at the time to all my friends in theater was like, it's like tech rehearsal every day. That's just how film production felt. And now after 15 years of doing live events for Nike, what some productions would do in 3 or 4 weeks for a certain level, we would pull off in a day and a half of craziness stage shows. So my theater knowledge never really went away. I just ended up doing stuff faster and faster and faster. And now filming, you can film so fast too. Back in the day when you used to have to set up lights and do all this sort of stuff, just takes forever. And now it's like, doesn't take much. You don't have a whole lot of lights, and you can kind of get into good performance and spend your time there, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you pick locations that are well lit and have really good sound. How's good sound? That's what everybody says. And
Yeah,
I made sure I had really good sound. So
exactly.
we're all over the map in our loose discussion here today. This is hysterical.
No, I mean, this is why I love doing this podcast, because everybody's time here is different. Talk about different stuff, talk about crazy stuff, talk about God knows what. And it's just interesting to hear everybody's different experiences and get to know them better and make that connection, because stories can just go back and forth. As you've been in the industry a lot longer than I have. So it's crazy to hear stuff that happened like back when you were working in the 90s and how it is now.
Oh yeah, listen, the 90s, there were no cell phones. We were lucky to get pagers at the time. I would be driving in LA as a PA. I'd have a Thomas Guide map, which is a big, thick map of LA. There's no GPS. There's none of that. I had to figure out my route with a map and go there. And then if I got a page from my production coordinator, I'd have to go find a payphone to call in and things like that. I mean, kind of finally, by the end of that, I remember at one time, the production had a couple of cell phones, and I was calling from Watts in LA at 1 a.m. on a cell phone because I could. It was a different time, different energy. Then I went back to LA in 2005, and I was a production coordinator on a project a friend of mine was producing. And I was like, we have cell phones, you have emails. It's like, it was amazing. LA is so great to work in, because all the stuff, all the tools you need are there. I need a wig, I need this, I need that. You can just get it all, and it all happens. And that's why I love LA now, is just to work in LA and to be in the industry down there is just great. I was there fall of 19, working for Nike on an event, and it was just great because it was in the middle of Hollywood. We're at a studio, we're building crazy shit, we're having a good time. It's just because it's LA, and that has that energy to it, and it's that working energy, which is a lot of fun that LA has. So I don't know what my point was. Oh well.
You're good. Now that you've been through all this stuff, what's probably the craziest thing you went through on a set? Whether that's angered you, annoyed you.
Oh, I'm definitely not an angered, annoyed guy. Like that's not my mindset, and my sets aren't like that. So from my sets, I don't have anything really kind of crazy. The stuff you end up doing in LA, working as a PA, it's just and I was an office PA, so I wasn't generally on set. There's set PAs and there's office PAs. And office PAs, you're more in the production office, help managing that level of things, help managing the logistics of a production. And if you have a really good production coordinator that you're working for as a PA, you've got a symbiotic relationship. You kind of know what they want and you're there to make sure, because the production coordinator is getting dumped on a bunch of shit that's got to get solved immediately. And you're there to solve that. And I remember this one feature I was working on called Bound, which is directed by the Wachowskis, at the time brothers, now not so much. And we were doing in film. So it was a film stock, and we needed to get film delivered to, I think it was Deluxe Film Processing. So we were in Southeast, sort of downtown LA, in a place called Vernon, California, shooting at an old meat packing factory that turned into a studio. And I had to get to Deluxe, and I started hearing, I started hearing this thing about they needed to get these film canisters in by this deadline. And Deluxe had this thing where, like, if you don't get it in by 8 o'clock, we're not doing it. You're fucked. You just, because they don't even care, because it's Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. And it was literally, I began to hear the rumors of getting this film moved. And I was like, I knew already at the time, because you didn't have Waze, you didn't have Gmail or Google telling you how much. I knew generally how long it was going to take me to get to where I was going to go, because I've been driving all the way in LA. And by the time I was called to the office, I already had my keys. I was ready to go. They were like, the production coordinator was like, they've dropped this off to me and needs to get to Deluxe by 8 o'clock. I was like, well, it's 7:53. They're like, yeah, you got to go right now, and I'm going to try to hold them off for you. And luckily, the coordinator had called Deluxe and had a good relationship with them. And I had been dropping by film every night anyway. So when I showed up, they kind of made an exception for us, just because of who that production coordinator was, and because I had made it there in 15 minutes, kind of craziness, that they did that for us, just because of, I wasn't a jerky PA, and my production coordinator was smart and savvy. So we lucked out.
Yeah.
So that's a crazy kind of stuff you have to do. You just something get into your
Right.
four-door Honda Accord and bust through traffic.
It's a lot of
And
pressure. It's a lot
yeah,
of
it's a lot of pressure. And I was young. I mean, I was used to pressure at the time, because I had graduated from college, went to work for the festival as stage ops, managing, just set changeovers and backstage run crew kind of positions. That's what I was doing. I left that to go be the stage manager at a smaller theater. So it paid less, longer contract, higher band level, as it were. Instead of sort of this backstage person that I was doing, I was now suddenly the person at this other theater. So at a really early young age, I was running the productions. I'd work with a director, and then we'd be in production, and shows would open, and I'd run the day every day, like get the theater opened. It was a dinner theater, work with the crews to make sure everybody was doing what they needed to do. And I was 23, 24, 20, barely 25, running the show. So it's something I'm really comfortable doing, which makes it sometimes challenging when you work for somebody for too long and you're like, now I'm cranky because I'm working for you. And that happens to me a lot, which is why I like being kind of my own boss right now, which has been really great. And it puts the onus on me to do the work that I need to do. Like I can't blame, my job. I don't have time for this because of my job. It's like, I got time for this. I don't have the job. The job is this now. And that's a real bonus. It was really great to wake up Monday, January 4th and know that I didn't have to go back to that corporate job. So it's sometimes worth it that way. The corporate job had its pluses and its minuses for sure, but it was in my chosen field, is in my chosen industry. It was a job I got asked to do. And, the best jobs are the ones that are handed to you. And this one was handed to me pretty much. So, it saved me through a lot of ups and downs in the economy, and offered me a lot of things that not a lot of, like, I didn't, because I was young and in theater and working, I never really saved much. I didn't save until way later in my life. And so that corporate job offered me some stability, which was helpful, and has allowed me to do what I'm doing now and feel way more comfortable about it, knowing that there's kind of a plan on the end in a way.
Right.
A lot of people, yes, the pandemic has not stopped them from working. but this pandemic has stopped a lot of people from working.
Yeah.
So, and especially in the events industry, look at your Comic Cons. They're not happening. That's, that's a big social events, that a lot, I have a friend, she was on Supernatural for a long time. And so they do cons. She just used to do cons all the time.
Yep.
She's not doing that. That's not happening, so, and I think it was a little bit of a good bread and butter for her too. So
Yeah. I mean, from what I've heard and like done research on, like they usually get paid pretty well depending on what company it is. It
right.
is, of course, but like there's been like a couple I've been to, and one of them's Creation Entertainment. It's very well. I cannot talk now. It's happening. Very well
All right.
run. Wow. Okay. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, the tickets are expensive, but at the same
Mhm.
time, like the company's benefiting, the actors are benefiting,
Yeah.
the people are benefiting. So it's
Right.
like when it works out for everybody, who cares how much you're paying?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, listen, everybody has their value, and it is stimulating the economy, because when you think about something like a con coming to town, it's at an event center. That event center is hiring laborers to clean up or set up or whatever needs to be done. There's then people who are, maybe if it's a destination con at a large city, they're flying in. Hotels are getting used. All of this sort of stuff. Conventions and tourism and everything, it is a backbone of really how a lot of economies work, and we just don't have that.
Right.
Right now there's places reaching out Eastern Oregon saying, hey, we want to bring filmmakers here for a residency, so that hopefully they want to shoot a movie here because they know how much a movie can bring into a local economy. And it's all those sort of side things that small films or even large films bring to it's just an immense amount of money for hotels and all of that, and all of that's gone right now. It's just gone. It's just not happening. And it'll start up and it'll go bananas when it's really clean and ready to go. It'll be bananas between
Really?
the musical acts that want to perform, the performance acts that want to perform, the giant monster trucks, all of that. I mean, that's, it's a lot. There's a lot of event businesses when you think about, your coliseums and your, various venues that have professional sports. They also do the bull riding, all of that stuff. Conventions, media, all of that. And to watch it all go away was just epic. It was just epic. And we're coming back slowly, a
Yeah.
lot. How long are we going for? This has been an hour. I don't know how long
I
you're
know.
planning
I
for.
mean, if there's anything else you want to talk about, I'm open. If not, I mean,
I've been all over the map. Who is your target? Who is your target audience? Who wants to hear from an old fuck like me? No,
um, no, I know you. I know you're joking. No, I mean, the point of me asking, like, you or just really anybody onto this podcast is just, share your stories and share what you've learned from the industry. Because, I mean, the little stories, like you talking about having to run that film by 8 p.m., that could help anybody with time. And I know this sounds crazy, but time management.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
literally anything that you say can help anybody that wants to get involved in the industry. It gives them a taste of what they might be getting into. Is it
That's
really
the hope. Is it really worth it? And the question that I like to say is absolutely, if you want it, if you really
Mhm.
want it. I can't see myself doing anything else. I can't. I just can't. I've been doing this all my life.
Right.
In junior high, it was rehearsals before school, after school, in the evening. Same thing with high school. By the time I went to college, you got to take care of your college courses, and then you get to do theater afterwards. It wasn't until I graduated from college, and I remember I was working for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and I was playing tennis with my buddy Dom, and I realized I actually had time to play tennis because I was getting a paycheck for doing something I love to do. And that was pretty special. And it's one of those things that, having arguments with my parents at the time, are like, also like, you need to have a teacher's degree so you have something to fall back on. And Robin Williams was like, don't do that ever. Then that's what you'd end up doing. You'd end up being that rather than really what you want to be doing.
Exactly.
And that's where, for me, maybe I didn't make enough money at a certain time in my life, maybe not, I don't know. All I know is I've done shit I've loved to do. I haven't had to have a shitty job ever, because it's that choice. But again, I'm doing good work. I'm behaving well on sets. I'm being remembered for good things, not negative things. And a lot of times for people, it will be, you will be remembered by the last gig you did, whether it was good or bad. That's how it's going to be,
Exactly.
and people have to remember that.
All about the grind. It's
All
all
about the grind, and about who you know and the relationships you build and how you behave on set. Because if you're a problem in any way, level or form, you're done. I
yeah,
used to hire a lot of freelancers in my job at Nike, and if you were ever a problem, I'd stop hiring you,
exactly.
because I don't need that in my life. Nobody needs that in their life. I need somebody who's going to do what I need them to do and to do it well without giving me gruff or saying I don't do parts of that job. It's like,
Right.
okay, then that's going to be less
That's
opportunity
why.
for you.
So there's no reason for me to bring you back. Bye bye.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
So. Oh,
It's crazy because everybody talks in Hollywood, as people say. Everybody, it's weird because I've noticed everybody almost knows everybody.
yeah.
It's
And they don't
wow.
know anything. Nobody knows anything. You know what I mean? There's ways of doing stuff, and then there's just ways it happens, and everyone's going to have an opinion about your project or what you're working on or your story or your ideas. And you have to be able to filter the right ones through and say, will that really affect what I'm changing? Is it within the world that I'm trying to create here? You know, it's it, nobody and nobody knows. And people who are in the industry and are gatekeepers to such and such stuff, in 2 years they may not be in that position and you might be hiring them. You just never know. There was a guy I used to work for years ago doing events, great guy, and he was working for a certain company and I did some work for them, and then I went off to work for Nike, and then he ended up coming to work for us at Nike, and he was working for me. So it flips. It really flips. And getting in the door and doing all that is still hard. I mean, I'm 50, almost 52. I'm still trying to figure out how to way to get back in. Not that I don't, not that I don't feel like I'm not in, but I feel like I don't even know what to define in is anymore, really. You know what
Right.
I mean? But
Well, with everything going on, it's like who is even in the industry right now?
anymore, right? Exactly, and they're working from home or whatever. So I
Yeah.
would say I'm as equally in it as I've ever been, really.
Right.
More so probably because of the contacts I'm making and because of the steps I'm making and the people I'm meeting. It's like, oh, finally I'm meeting the people I want to be meeting on all this. So that puts you in, I guess. Who knows? You're right. Who's in or who's out anymore?
Yeah.
Because people you're meeting with, like I met with a lawyer, he's a Beverly Hills lawyer, but he's actually in Chicago right now, living and quarantining with family,
Yeah.
so everybody's everywhere now. So,
Exactly.
yeah. I try to think of, like, you ask about like horror stories and things like that. Um, you run into them all the time. I was doing so many events and large stage shows, every other week that we were doing big stuff. We were doing an Olympic thing at Nike, and where the guy was doing a hammer toss, which, if you know what a hammer toss is, it's like an 8-pound metal ball on the end of a just metal, like hanger, on the end of a hanger wire. The guy spins around. They throw it really far. That's the competition. Well, we're doing this inside in the theater, and the creative director really wanted to do this. And the lead producer was like, "This is not great, but we'll try to figure it out." And we talked to the hammer toss guy, and we're like, "Okay." And I was technical directing the show. Uh, can you hit this basket? He's like, "I hit it every time. It'd be no problem." We're like, "Okay." So we're doing this big giant choreographed move. You have 43 models, and we got this guy doing this hammer toss, and he hits the basket every time. Dress rehearsal doesn't hit the basket. It flew through 3 giant thick drapes and through a wall and into the wall and down. It disappeared. It completely disappeared. So we were lucky he didn't kill anybody. And we were able to fish the hammer out of the wall weeks later because they had to tear open the wall. But yeah, when I had to call the production manager, like, hey, remember how we were gonna have maybe some problems with that hammer? Well, guess what? And the radio was so silent. He's like, I'll be right over. And he didn't throw a hammer in the show. He faked it. He had to mime it. But that's sort of one of many crazy shit you deal with on any given day when you do, big budget fashion talent shows for corporations. So,
Yep.
Crazy stuff happens. Where's the hammer? I don't know. So, yeah.
We couldn't find it. It disappeared.
Couldn't find it. And then when they finally fished it out, it had gone, like I said, it had gone through several drape, large duvetine thick drape, tore a hole in 3 of those, then went through a wall and then went down into the wall. Like the wall stopped and then it fell down, like made a hole and then went into the space in the wall. So it had really disappeared. The curtain slowed it down enough to not go through both sides of the wall. You know what I mean? Because this guy was hucking it too. And then because your safety, if I have to say anything that's important, is safety. Safety is always important. On top of everything else, doesn't matter. Safety, which is why you talk about the COVIDs, like it's safety right now. No one's safe. And then producers are liable. Producers become really liable. And it's these young producers who are like, I don't have insurance. I don't need that. Like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do. Because if somebody gets hurt, there's a lot of stunt people, a lot of actors that get hurt on set. If you don't have insurance, you're screwed.
Absolutely.
There's no way around that.
Yeah. That'd be the one takeaway from today's talk. Have insurance. Be safe.
There we go. Exactly.
Awesome.
Like I just got car insurance and I just paid off the whole year for that. So
yeah, do that. Always have good insurance. Trust me, that's another thing. Always have good insurance as you get older. Don't fool around. I've had house fires. I've had cars blow up. You want insurance. So
yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it was lovely chatting with you, my dear. Very awesome. Cool.
All right.
Well, let me know if I can send you any kind of details as far as links or whatever. And let me know when you're going to post this and I'll share it for sure.
Will do.
Awesome.
Right. Thank you
again.
I will talk to you soon.
Chat with you soon. Nice chatting with you. Bye.
You too.